3 years ago, Toronto-born filmmaker Daniel Roher probably couldn't have imagined that he would find himself chronicling the epic search for Russian state assassins who tried to fatally poison President Vladimir Putin's harshest critic, Alexei Navalny. Nor could he have anticipated that film, simply titled Navalny, would win the Academy Award for Best Feature Documentary. But that all happened. And it brings Daniel Roher to our studio tonight. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Steve. It's great to be here.
You know what I want to start with here.
Yeah.
Did you bring anything with you today?
I have to preface with, I don't carry this thing around with me. It just so happens that I came straight from the airport and I had it in my suitcase because it will live in Toronto at my parents' house. But I had to schlep this thing around. It's about 15 pounds.
It's okay, I've never had one of these in my hands before,
hefty.
obviously.
It's a serious piece of hardware.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
It's cool. They do it right.
Have you got your head around the notion that all this has happened to you yet?
You know, it's I don't know how to process that which cannot be processed. I haven't really had the time and space, even 2 or 3 weeks since the Oscars, to do a download and really process all of this. It's just an extraordinary sort of fever dream that I haven't woken up from yet. But I know that there's video evidence, there are photographs, and of course this thing is still with me. So it's just an extraordinary miracle.
How old are you?
29.
You are a 29-year-old Academy Award winner. I mean,
it sounds pretty
can't
cool
even, you can't even keep a straight face when I say that.
It's ridiculous. It really is. Listen, it's a fluke. I never sought this out. You know, this was not part of my life plan. I just wanted to be a filmmaker and be able to make a living making films. And I was just following my creative instincts and following my passions and my interests, and it just led me down this extraordinary alleyway. And I knocked on the door of Alexei Navalny, and he opened it, and you know, we're here.
Why do you say it's a fluke?
Well, because so much of documentary filmmaking is just that. It is fluke. It's being in the right place at the right time with a camera and having the fortitude and the flexibility to adjust and augment your plans and expectations. And, you know, this is really a cosmic aligning of stars. It's lightning in a bottle. There's no reason why I, Daniel Roher from Toronto, should ever have been sitting across from Alexei Navalny, the leader of the Russian opposition, to pitch him on doing a film project. And that was the first miracle. I was able to pitch him, and he was receptive to that, and we started shooting. And then as we were shooting, every single day, it seemed as though the documentary gods were handing to me on a silver platter something extraordinary, something big, amazing characters. Everyone in this film looks like a movie star. Navalny is charismatic and hilarious. People are so shocked to find that our film is comedic, it's funny. And then there are moments and scenes in this film that have a scale and a scope that impact history, that impact the domestic politics of the world's biggest country. And to have a front row seat to that with your camera is a miracle. It's absolutely miraculous.
You as a documentary filmmaker, though, no doubt have your pick of thousands of stories you could potentially tell. Why did you want to tell that one?
Well, in Navalny, I found one of the most compelling and charismatic politicians, political figures today. Here's a guy who literally survived an assassination attempt. He's like the guy who lived, the guy Putin couldn't kill, and he was planning to go back. It's Shakespearean, the scope and scale of this story. It's like a Greek epic, and I identified that from the first moment. So the story is one thing. It's one thing to have the overview of an amazing story and to know that. But the other ingredient that's really incredible for documentary making is that here was a story that very clearly had a beginning, middle, and end. We had this assassination attempt, this crazy whodunit, followed by this guy's decision to return to Russia. So we knew as we were filming that we had a natural conclusion to this story, which isn't always the case in documentary making. And most importantly, when you sit across from Navalny and you chat with him, he has this quality that is often ascribed to master politicians. When you meet someone who has an extraordinary lightness and charisma, and within 20 minutes, within 2 minutes, you're convinced this guy could be the president. Navalny has that thing, that quality. And so I saw in him an extraordinary subject, and it was just incumbent upon us to do everything we could to deliver the best possible film.
And you did. It's a tremendous achievement in filmmaking, and I want to show one of the scenes right now that is crazy. This is you know what scene I'm going to show.
Sure.
This is the crazy scene. Navalny is pretending to be a high-ranking Russian FSB secretary. It's a prank call. He's calling the Kremlin hit squad that poisoned him. They confess in the middle of the call to having attempted to murder him. Here's that call. Sheldon, roll it if you would.
10 минут вашего времени очень сильно нужно.
Да, слушаю.
Мне нужно один абзац. Просто краткое понимание от членов команды. Что у нас пошло не так? Почему в Томске был с Навальным полный провал?
Ну, это вот я вопрос себе задавал уже не один раз, кстати. Ну, я оцениваю работу хорошую, по крайней мере. Ну, работа сделана как бы, ну, как вот делали, как бы это все прорабатывалось вопрос. И не один раз. Ну, в нашей работе, сами понимаете, вопросов и нюансов всегда очень много, и все учитывать, как бы, ну.
Какой предмет одежды? На какой предмет одежды главный был акцент? У нас самый рискованный в теории предмет одежды какой?
Ну, трусы. Где это паховая часть.
Паховой части трусов.
Ну, гульфи, так называемые, там швы такие есть.
I mean, you know, you can't make this stuff
But
up.
I haven't it's still unbelievable to me.
And you've seen that 1,000
I've
times.
seen it 1,000 times,
Yeah.
and it's still, it has the same cognitive dissonance now that it did when we shot that scene.
Well, Daniel, here's the thing. I mean, you can see the reaction of the people in the room. Now, you don't speak Russian.
Not a
so
word.
you know something's going on,
Yeah.
but you don't know what's going on, I guess, right?
Well, there were two cameras shooting that day. Nikki Waddle, our extraordinary Austrian DP, and I were filming that scene, and we had no expectations anything meaningful would happen. You know, I presume pretty early on in spy school, they tell you not to blab on an open, unsecured line to someone you cannot verify the identity of. But lo and behold, about an hour into our shoot that morning, the conversation was progressing further than it had before. And I recognized that whoever was on the other end of the line was engaging in a way that the other phone calls had not worked out. And then I noticed that Maria Pevchik, who's Navalny's chief investigator, who's the young woman in that clip, her jaw unhinges and hits the floor. And up until that moment, Maria's, emotional range, as I had seen it, had been like mildly annoyed to very annoyed. That was the spectrum of how she behaved towards me. And so to see this look of utter shock, you didn't have to speak a word of Russian to understand that something truly extraordinary was transpiring. And, I just remember a lightning bolt shooting up and down my spine, and I understood what was happening, and I just made sure we had enough battery in the cameras and that we were in focus, and we just kept shooting.
No, you keep rolling for sure.
Yeah.
But then how long after the fact did you finally understand what actually had just transpired?
Well, the literal details of it, probably that the call in real life lasted about 50 minutes. And it got to the point where, it was like, enough already, let's leave this poor guy alone. And it was shortly after we hung up that, Christo would have said some of the key details that I wouldn't have understood, like, it was in the underwear and these sorts of things.
Did you shake your head when you found? I mean, this talk about underwears and the cod piece and all this. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, this is what I was sort of speaking to when I was talking about gifts from the documentary gods. It's like, it is truly stranger than fiction. It's like you could not write this stuff.
Your voice is the voice we hear interviewing Navalny in
Yes.
the course of the documentary. What did you learn about him that you didn't know going into it, just by being in his presence?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I was really interested in when it came to getting to know Alexei was just his political curiosity. Navalny, you and Navalny would get along really well because he, I think much like you, is a total public policy and politics nerd. He's a total wonk. He loves talking about public policy. He loves debating the issues of the day. He has something to say about everything, as do I. And oftentimes we were on opposing sides of a given issue and we would have these ferocious arguments, and I would watch as he would outmaneuver me in my language. This is his second language, and it just showed the magnitude of his intellect and his ability. He's a very talented guy, very curious guy.
What would you have been on the opposite sides of?
Well,
What
I
issue?
remember Twitter, one specific thing that we were debating is Twitter had just banned Donald Trump. And I remember my opinion on that, being a decent progressive from the West, was good. This guy should not have a platform. He's dangerous and unhinged and all of these things. And Navalny, being a progressive from a very different context, which is Russia. His opinion on that was, no, absolutely not. Who is Jack Dorsey? What is Twitter? Who are these people who get to decide who gets a voice? I'm sorry, but you Democrats with your values think that everyone should have freedom of speech, except if you don't like what they have to say.
Did he convince you?
I was certainly able to see things from his perspective. What his point was is that every single day there were thousands of people uttering death threats against him. And why aren't they banned from Twitter? So I think that he brought up some very good points, but it was a dynamic discussion that really highlighted a little bit of our interpersonal dynamic.
On the other hand, for a progressive Russian, he does keep company
Yeah.
with some fairly far-right Russian fascist types,
Yeah.
which feels like an odd thing to do. Why does he do that?
Well, it's a great question. First and foremost, when I was making this film, one of the important political lessons that I had to learn was that left and right, progressive, conservative, these terms that we use to describe political lines where we come from in Canada, don't apply to Russia. There is no analog for the left and the right. The issues that typically divide what left and right is in the West have no analog in Russia. So that's the first thing. And I think more than anything, what would define Navalny's his mission is to get rid of Putin and install a democratic tradition in the country, to cut the power of the presidency and to let the Russian people decide for themselves their vision for the future of the country. And what Navalny says, and what he would say, is that democracy is messy, and you cannot, if you want to oust a tyrant and a dictator, just appeal to the nice people. You have to appeal to as many people as possible. So when it comes to Navalny's flirtation with nationalism, something I might add I find deeply uncomfortable, it's a political calculation he's made.
The enemy of the enemy is my friend.
I think that's what it boils down to. And whilst it's something that makes me uncomfortable, I can understand why he made that political decision.
Let's talk Ukraine, because you've described him as the number one figure in Russia opposing the war in Ukraine.
I think that's right.
You know, some Ukrainians argue he's not.
Yeah.
And they point to the fact that he has said Crimea belongs to Russia, which is a pretty controversial thing to say
Yeah.
in Ukraine these days. Okay, you want to riff on that a bit?
Well, first and foremost, I would encourage you, I don't have the full quote in front of me, but I can tell you that the context of what Navalny spoke to, that is a snippet of a much fuller context. So we'd have to
There's
look.
a certain realpolitik in what he says.
Yeah, we would have to look that up, but I think that a lot of his comments on Crimea specifically have been picked apart from a larger context, which I can't speak to now, unfortunately, because I don't have the full quotes in front of me. But look, it is unequivocal and undeniable that Alexei Navalny, at any given opportunity in the last year, has spoken out against this war and the corrupt thugs who are waging it. And it has come without any consideration for his own well-being and longevity. There's a clear analog that the reason why he's in solitary confinement, languishing in a little tiny cell.
We got a shot of this. Sheldon, bring this up if you would.
Bring the shot up.
Yeah,
He's in
why
this
not- there we
tiny
go.
little cell.
Now, this is a picture of a replica of a punishment prison cell. Navalny has been sent to 12 times for things as insignificant as incorrectly introducing himself to guards, and he's serving more than a decade in a maximum security Russian prison that looks just like that.
Because of his opposition to the war and his relentlessness, not just at how he speaks out against it, but how his organization from which he directs from afar, from prison, seeks to uncover the corruption of those who are waging this war.
And Sheldon, go ahead. Let's do the next shot as well. Here he is appearing in court remotely from prison, looking rather gaunt there. Do you know how he's managing all of this right now?
Well, look, it's incredibly challenging. He's the only prisoner in the Russian penal system who is in a perpetual state of solitary confinement. He's in solitary confinement because of his anti-war activism. And it's dark. It's very upsetting. But it brings to mind, for me, I've been thinking about this quite a lot, a great quote by Leonard Cohen, that he likes cracks because that's how the light gets in. Well, I think for millions of Russians, Alexei Navalny represents the light. He represents a little glimmer of hope in a sea of darkness. And one of the most compelling and inspiring parts of not just making this film, but getting it out into the world, is going to screenings in Vienna or Vilnius or Berlin and having young Russians newly exiled from their country approach me afterwards teary-eyed, inspired, and for the first time, the shame, the deep shame they felt at their nationality, at their Russianness. For just a moment, in the face of Navalny, it dissipates, and they have a small reason to feel pride and proud and a little glimmer of hope. And I think that really matters, and that's meant a great deal to me.
When's the last time you had contact with him?
Well, the last time I, of course, saw him was on January 17th, 2021.
Does he know your film won the Oscar?
Yeah, I sort of hear the same thing the rest of the world hears. He is sometimes able to get messages out to us on Facebook and Instagram, and he found out that the film won the Academy Award because he was in his little cell. He could hear through the door the radio that was in the other room playing. It was Russian news, and they were recapping the Academy Awards, and they quite overtly omitted the documentary category. And to Navalny, that was a really good sign. And he thought, we might have done well. And his lawyers came in and they told him, your film won the Oscar. And that was really meaningful for me because I have spent a year of my life trying to manifest this impossible dream for Navalny, for his cause, for his plight, with the thought being that if we can keep this man's name in the global consciousness, perhaps it will be a stone cast to dissuade the regime from murdering him in prison. And that's what we've tried to do. So to deliver him and his family this ultimate victory is very meaningful.
You know, I've had a lot of people ask me this question, and I'm sure you get asked this question all the time, but I think we got to ask it, which is, why would he go back knowing what was waiting for him?
Listen, it's a very complicated question, and it's challenging for me even when I have to think about it and consider it. First and foremost, I think the calculus about whether to go back or not would have been different had this war already been launched, or the escalation of the war already been underway. He went back before the war was a thing. No one thought it would happen. That's the first thing. People often talk about a sort of a savior complex. He wanted to be the guy to go and save the country in spite of his, certain detainment. Maybe that's part of it. But at the end of the day, I think if Alexei were sitting here, what he might offer is the thought that he frames himself as the moral leader of the nation, the leader of the opposition, and it is his mission to get as many people as possible out on the streets to protest.
Even if he has to die for it?
I think he's trying to set an example. And what he would say is, how can I ask people to go protest if I'm sitting safe in Berlin or Vilnius or Paris or wherever? He wants to be an example and show Russians that they can be brave and they can be courageous and strong. It's a deeply upsetting and sad context, but at the end of the day, it's the decision made between Navalny and his higher power, and whether you agree with him or not, you must admire the courage it took to make that decision.
Do you see it as part of your life's mission now to make sure the world doesn't forget him?
I think I'm forever tied to this guy and his family, and I happen to care about them very much. I've become quite close with his wife and children over the course of our awards campaign and the promotion of the film, and they were just sharing the dance floor, tearing up the dance floor at my wedding a few days ago, and it was really special for all of us that they were there, and it was very meaningful. But of course, when it comes to Navalny specifically, my ultimate dream for all of this is to be able to show him the film, travel to Moscow in the hypothetical Russia of the future, when Putin is gone and there's a very, very different political headwind in that country, and I can show him the movie that we made.
You anticipated my next question. I was going to ask you about that.
Yes.
Do you see a day when you two will be able to shake hands and show your movie together to people?
Well, listen, things look really bleak right now.
They sure do.
But, there's that old expression, the night is darkest just before the dawn, and I believe in that. And if you spend enough time with Navalny, one of his values that I think is cornerstone to who he is his sense of optimism and hope. He is oriented towards optimism and being hopeful, and you can't help be inspired by that. So in the spirit of Navalny, I have hope that he will survive this ordeal, he will outlast Putin, and I'll get to shake his hand again, and we'll get to see the movie.
You're sitting here in a studio in TVO.
Yes.
And I have to,
Very meaningful for me to be
Well,
here.
this is where I wanted to go next, because we got just a couple of minutes left here, and I wanted to ask you about the fact that the guy who used to be the chair of the board here, Peter O'Brien, filmmaker, is one of your mentors.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's something about you being here that kind of brings things full circle, don't you think?
It's very special, and it's not lost on me. You know, when you win an award like this and you achieve something as grand as winning an Oscar, it's not me, Daniel Rohr, who has won this award. It is every single person who has ever helped me or been inspired me and supported me and uplifted me, and every single person who has discouraged me and knocked me down and taught me the resilience to keep going. And certainly chief among the people who have inspired me, you know, there are a few people who I hold in very high esteem, and Peter O'Brien and Carolyn Bennett. I remember his wife and Minister Bennett, and
member of Parliament for this area.
For Toronto St. Paul's, where I grew up. I remember quite well being in Carolyn's office and telling her about the films I wanted to make and all of these things, and she said, "You should meet my husband, Pete. He's the chair of TVO." And I said, "Boy, that'd be great." And I went and I met Peter, and Peter produced one of my first films, Survivor's Row, which is a really important film.
Which aired on this channel.
Which aired on this channel. Yeah. And that, Peter O'Brien has played such a profound influence in my life and my work. And again, a full circle moment, we had the Navalny family on the dance floor, and then we had Peter and Carolyn on the dance floor at my wedding, and that was very special.
You know, I know that everybody you know and who contributed to who you are today
Yes.
Has got a piece of this.
Yes.
But it's your name that's on it. That's pretty trippy.
It's cool. I think I'm best not to think about it too much, because at the end of the day, I have a lot of film left in the tank, and I don't want to have to live up to this.
Well,
It's
that's
just
the
something
thing,
that
Daniel.
happened.
What do you do for an encore when you win an Oscar at age 29?
Well, I think that what I do is just follow my creative instincts. I mean, I got here because I followed my passion and I told the stories that were interesting for me, and I just, you know, woke up every day wanting to make stuff and wanting to make films. And I just make things that are interesting. I think for the next one, I do something so vastly different, something I've never done before. So, you know, this was an intense political thriller. You know, maybe my next film will be a scripted comedy. You know, something completely from left field. But what ties them together is just a passion for storytelling and a commitment to making things that I care deeply about.
Good stuff. Navalny is a great documentary. We encourage everybody to see it. And we take a great deal of pride in your achievements here.
Well, it's wonderful to be back, and although it's like, I guess, a rival of TVO, it is available on Crave here in...
We are happy to have people watch Crave if they can see this documentary. And is this like the Stanley Cup? Do you give it to all of your pals for a day to take home?
You know, it's funny.
Because I'll just...
You look great with it. You look great with it. When you win the Oscar for 6 hours, for 7 hours, which is the only time it's acceptable to carry it around with you, you're like a superpower. And I had this great moment where I could bring one of my childhood buddies to the Vanity Fair after party. And his name's Matthew. He flew in from Toronto. We came to this party, and I said, "Okay, pick 3 celebrities, and I'll introduce you to them. Who do you want to meet?" And he said, "Oh, there's Seth Rogen. Let's go meet him." So you go over, I say, "Hi, Seth. You know, this is my buddy. He wants to say hi." And you sort of have that power for a few hours. But look, it's really exciting. It's really cool. But it's not lost on me that I'm here because Alexei Navalny is languishing in a gulag, and that is very close to my thoughts and my heart. And you know, this is more than anything for him and his family.
Perfect. Daniel Rohr, thanks so much for visiting us here at TVO
It's
tonight.
an honor. It's really legendary being on the set of The Agenda. It's pretty cool. It's very special for me.
It's not bad, but it's not an Oscar.
Well, it's cool to be here with that guy.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.